Have you ever been on a road trip? Well, I remember the first solo road trip I ever took. I set out from Kilgore and was going to go about a 5-hour drive to a place called Cameron, Texas, because I knew some folks there. Although I was going to make a few stops between here and there. The first was going to be my brother's house. He lived in an apartment. He was in college at the time. And so I arrived in Nacogdoches about an hour away, and I parked at his apartment. What I didn't know is that some drunk person had knocked over a sign that said, "If you park here, your car will be towed." So I parked there. So the next morning I woke up and my car had been impounded. That cost me, I think, $115. It's been years, but I still remember that. And that was most of the money. I was a poor college kid at the time, and that was most of the money that I had for my trip. So I got my Jeep out and I left town. And so I drove about another 40 minutes to a place called Davy Crockett National Forest. I was going to camp out there, and beautiful place. But I got there, and it was in the middle of summer, and it was Texas, still is Texas, and there was no lake, there was no water, and so I was just going to sleep in my Jeep. I just bought this Jeep. I dreamed about camping in it, and so I discovered something on that trip. I parked there at Davy Crockett. I laid my sleeping bag in the back and realized that the Jeep was not quite long enough for me. It was just aggravatingly short enough that my feet wouldn't quite fit in the length of it. And so I sort of did this diagonal thing. And I laid out, and it was about 95 degrees or something like that. It was really just unbearable. So at about midnight, I decided, forget this. I'm gonna drive the rest of the way. But it was midnight, and I didn't want to arrive at like 4 a.m. to the place I was heading because they would be asleep. So I packed up and I drove about 20 miles an hour all night long, just so that I would arrive at the right time. I arrived at, I think, 6 a.m. and spent the rest of the week there. And it was a road trip, but every road trip has an adventure. And so this month we've been reading through the book of Acts, and we're up to chapter 13. We're trying to do a chapter a day. So if you haven't read chapter 13 yet, I'd encourage you to pause the video, take a look at chapter 13. You can find it. You can find the text of that in the comments section of this post, and then unpause the video. I've got a couple of ideas to share with you. So if you're still watching, I'm assuming that means that you read chapter 13. So chapter 13 is sort of the beginning of a set of massive road trips, these missionary journeys that Paul and Barnabas and John Mark and Peter and all these people begin to take around the world. Probably ringing in their ears is Jesus' call to make disciples of all nations, to go out from Judea and to the other lands and make disciples, and so they begin to do it. Now, one of the reasons why they can do this is Roman roads. So the journey that we see in chapter 13, Paul and Barnabas and John Mark are traveling along a road that we know what it's called. It's called the Via Augusta. And so that was one of the Roman roads that Rome had made. And so one of the things about Rome, and one of the reasons why it was so powerful, is because of its road building abilities. There became this euphemism that all roads lead to Rome. And that was generally true in that time because they built and built and built. And they built roads that went all over the place. And so generally, during the day at least, it was safe to travel on these Roman roads. And so these roads made it possible to carry the message and to connect city after city. And so the trip that we see so far in chapter 13 is following this Via Augusta. And so there was another invention around that time. This is sort of a side note, but there's another invention around that time that made it possible for the message to be spread more easily. The Roman road was one, of course, but the Codex was another. There's the Codex is a we would look at it like a book basically, but before this time they would generally use scrolls for scripture and writing and things like that, but the Codex surfaced around this time, and it's basically the modern book binding that we have today. And so those two inventions made it possible to carry this message all over the world. And so in chapter 13, they are traveling. Now they're not traveling with Scripture at this point, but these are some of the men who wrote Scripture, who created the words that would be eventually carried along these Roman roads. So really some interesting history there. So in this chapter, we see a couple of bizarre things. We see a sorcerer who gets shut up by Paul, who he turns him blind. We see there's a quick little reference to a man who says, in my version it said he was a childhood friend of Herod. That's probably it's Herod Antipas. It's probably where Luke, the writer of Acts, got most of his information about the Herods. We've seen Herod come up a couple of times in Acts, and so most of that information probably came from this childhood friend of Herod. So in any case, boy, I'm sort of rambling, aren't I? So anyways, that's some thoughts on chapter 13. It's really, to me, it's really exciting to see the beginnings of these missionary trips, because these would become the foundation for the churches that are still talked about even today. And so I have made the full walk around my house, sort of took a little journey of my own. So maybe today in the comment section, tell me about a journey that you've taken, a road trip or some interesting trek that you've gone. Maybe especially mission trips. Have you ever been on a mission trip? Are you interested in going on a mission trip? If you are, by the way, I bet we could connect you with some mission trip going somewhere. But let's talk about that a bit. That'd be interesting. I've been on a number of mission trips and know lots of folks that have, so that'd be kind of fun to discuss in the comment section. So that's our video for today. I talked probably less about the chapter and more about history, but I suppose that's okay. Hope that was helpful. Tomorrow is Sunday, so we will pick it back up on Monday, hopefully, and that will be chapter 14. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.